Hey skiers and snowboarders in the Southeast, this is meteorologist Brad Pedovich with your Ski Southeast forecast update for the week going into Christmas. And what can I say? The weather is amazing. It's finally cooled off across the eastern half of the country, and it's actually going to get colder. The real story over the next week and a half is going to be the cold air, which means snowmaking is going to be absolutely prolific. So let's start with the big overarching pattern here. We're going to go through time here, and I'll kind of show you how this pattern unfolds as the cold air kind of invades the eastern half of the country. And this is really going to set the stage for some of the coldest air we've seen in many years in the Southeast. You can see the cold air building over the western U.S. We've got a little system passing to the south today. That's not really going to do much. If anything, it's just going to move off and produce a few snow flurries as it pushes off to the east. The bigger story is going to be this Arctic front, which we're going to see developing in the middle of the country. I'll turn the temperatures on real quickly, and you can see that aqua shade up here. This is the really cold air, and that's going to be diving down to the southeast over time. I'm going to go all the way till Thursday this week, and you can see that Arctic front setting up right there. Look at all that cold air. It's still going to be plenty cold here in the southeast for snowmaking. It's just going to be what I would call normal cold air in the southeast. As far as the precipitation is concerned, there is going to be some icing, maybe a little bit of a wintry mix with the first batch of warm air. Because remember, when you see an Arctic front, you're going to get a huge surge of warm air ahead of it. So what's happening is you're seeing a huge surge of warm air coming up ahead of this Arctic front. And while most of the mountains will be in that marginal temperature category, if you're east of the mountains here in the southeast, it's really going to be more about temperatures probably in the 40s and 50s. We'll go a little bit further ahead. We'll go into the evening hours going into Christmas Eve. So this will be Friday night into Saturday morning. You can see the system passes through relatively quickly. There is going to be a little bit of snow here, I think Thursday into Friday as it passes right there. That's going to be our best chance. So this will be mainly Thursday that we see our snow chances. There's not a ton of northwest flow behind it. The flow does briefly come out of the northwest, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a period of northwest flow snow. But I wouldn't expect it to be a ton, except for maybe West Virginia, Maryland. It might get fluffed up a little bit right there. But again, the real story in this whole thing is going to be the cold air. As I show you the temperatures here, we'll go back to the temperatures. Look at this brutally cold air. If you're going skiing Christmas weekend, I just would caution you, make sure you have all the gear, because we're talking below zero air temperatures with wind chills that could be 20 or 30 degrees below zero. So by far, like I said, some of the coldest air. And once it gets here, I mean, it sticks around. We go through Christmas weekend. This is Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. It's brutally cold. I mean, that is cold air, folks. And so snowmakers, they love it. This is cold Arctic air. They'll be able to fluff up that snow. The air-water mixture is going to be really more air than water, which fluffs up the snow and means they can really get the base built up. So between now and New Year's, even though I do see some warmer air coming for New Year's, it's not going to matter because they're going to be able to make so much snow over the next week and a half that the base, this could really set the stage for the entire season. So how much snow could we see, natural snow, out of this? Let's take a look. I'm going to move my head just a little bit higher so you can kind of see the total. So this is what I always like to show is the Blenda model. So we'll go through time, and you can see this is the first batch of snow ahead of the Arctic front. So notice up here in parts of West Virginia, the average is anywhere from 1 to as much as 4 inches in some of the higher elevations Thursday into Friday morning. But then here comes the Arctic front and another blast of fluffy snow on Christmas Eve into Christmas Day. I'll go all the way to Monday morning, 7 a.m. So you can see the totals, nothing that's crazy high because there's just not a lot of moisture with this. That's the thing about this setup. It's such a cold, dry air mass that it's kind of moisture starved. The only thing you can hope for is some lake effect, a northwest flow where we pick up just enough moisture off the Great Lakes that would allow for some of this moisture to get down here. And sometimes the guidance or the models in this case don't pick it up very well. So I do think the potential is there to fluff this up a little bit as we go into next week. And as we go further into the future, looks like another system tries to approach the middle of next week, and it's still cold enough that it snows. So that's what I mean. Between now and New Year's, I mean, this is really going to be some really cold air. While it's not as snowy as I would like to see, you could see some of these totals, like Snowshoe could end up with 8 to 12 inches of snow by middle of next week, or even higher. Wisp, the Canaan Valley, those areas could really get clobbered with some good snow. It's really about the cold air, to be honest with you. And that cold air, I think, is going to be the story for most areas. And I'm going to quickly pop up the temperatures here just to kind of show you how cold this air mass is going to be. And this will give you an idea for dressing for going to the mountains. So you can see temperatures in the mountains, 30s and 40s Wednesday, but Thursday it starts to cool off. We see a lot of 20s. We go further into the future. Watch the Arctic front come in here. You'll see it blasting in from the west. So by Friday, look at that. I mean, those are below zero readings in the mountains of the southeast, and maybe not recovering above the low and mid-teens with wind chills below zero. I mean, this is through Monday. It recovers a little bit next week, but that's still brutally cold for most of next week. So, folks, this is great. Great snowmaking. It might not be the greatest natural snow setup, but for snowmakers, they got to love this. And it sets the stage for the holiday weekend and New Year's to be absolutely brilliant conditions in the southeast. So I'm traveling. I will try to post an update going into the holiday weekend. Wish I was skiing as always. Keep thinking snow because this is a great setup.